Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to another episode of Lipstick and Lore. Your host today has been, well, abducted. So, I'm here in her place. I'm better, don't worry. Today's case is that of the Roswell incident. We're going to cover conspiracies, cover-ups, and possible government involvement. So go ahead and grab your tinfoil hats and let's jump straight into this one. And welcoming back voiceover me. Today's case is that of the Roswell incident, which stands as one of the biggest UFO conspiracy theorist driving forces to this day. If you're into UFOs or aliens or flying saucers, most likely you've heard of the Roswell incident. But if you haven't, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it today. I'm going to give you the sort of overview and try to keep it as concise as possible because there is a lot to cover here and there's a lot of sources about different things and different people who are involved, but I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet while still giving you the bulk of the information. So without further ado, let's get into today's case. So first things first, what is the Roswell incident? Basically, the Roswell incident is a rancher who found debris on his land that he thought were a little weird, and he reported them to the sheriff's office, who then reported it to the New Mexico Roswell Army Base, who investigated it, but said that nothing was out of the ordinary. It was a simple weather balloon, and the public didn't really like this answer, and there's been many conspiracy theories and different resources and witnesses that have come out to basically say that this is one big cover-up. So I'm going to give you the different accounts from different people and let you make your own decision about what you think this really was. Was it a UFO cover-up? Was it a weather balloon? Is the government lying to us? What do you think at the end? Let me know in the comments once you've gotten through the video. So let's talk a little bit about our rancher for a second. Throughout this video, I'm going to call him Brazel because that's what most of the resources I found called him. And I will have all of those linked below, like I usually do, because I love a girl who cites her sources, okay? Gotta let them know where the information is from. So Brazel was your typical rancher in New Mexico. He had livestock and crops and most of the typical rancher stuff, very technical terms, I know. And he wasn't big on UFOs or conspiracy theories from what I could find. Most of his friends and family said that before this incident, Brazel had really zero to little interest in anything to do with UFOs, aliens, or flying saucers. In fact, he really had no idea of the absolute craze that was going on in the US at this point, because 1947 was a big time for UFO sightings and people believing that the government is lying to us and there's aliens and they're hiding them from us, which I feel like is very much still something that people believe today. Also, side note, if the audio is a little wonky, it's because there's a storm going on outside and there's really nothing I can do about it, so sorry if you can hear that. I will try my best to edit it out, but no promises. I am not an expert, I am just a girl. I do want to touch on the UFO craze that was going on in the USA at this point, and I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of what really jump-started this, because obviously people have believed in aliens for as long as the Earth has been around, I'm sure. Most people believe that we aren't alone out there. The universe is large, vast, and holds many different universes, and a lot of people believe that somewhere out there there's another Earth with people just like us, or far more intelligent life forms that have way more technology than us. And I'd like to hear your opinions on that in the comments below. So the UFO craze really took off after Kenneth Arnold's account of the flying saucer objects he claimed performed maneuvers that surpassed any capable of any known aircraft. And that is a direct quote from him, by the way. Which sparked many conspiracy theorists to come up with their own accounts of UFO sightings, and a lot of people were even bringing out pictures or videos and things that they thought were UFOs, which pictures in that at the time weren't very great because, mind you, this is 1947, so it's not like everybody had an iPhone in their pocket, could just whip it out and take a bunch of pictures, but I digress. So this is what really jumpstarted the craze in the US and led to a lot of people basically saying they saw stuff, and New Mexico was a huge breeding ground for this because there's a lot of open air and a lot of military bases, which are the perfect combination for UFO conspiracy theorists and flying saucer-like objects. This UFO craze was brought to Brazel's attention on July 5th while talking to his uncle on the phone, which I couldn't quite get a read on his uncle. I don't know if he was big into aliens or anything like that. I couldn't find a whole lot of information on him, but based on this conversation, I'm going to go with maybe yes, or he had just seen something in the news. I'm not fully sure. But basically, Brazel had called his uncle to talk about these weird debris that he had found on his land, which he said had been, and I quote, tinfoil, rubber, tape, and thin wood beams scattered across his land, end quote. And that is from one of the newspapers that I found from at the time. But basically, his uncle had told him that these debris could be from an unknown flying object, or a UFO, and that he had heard a bunch of talk about hundreds of reports coming into sheriff's office about these unidentified flying objects and flying saucers and things like that, and he had also heard that there was a $3,000 reward for anybody who could bring forth physical evidence of these flying discs. And this sparked Brazel's interest a lot, which $3,000 is still a lot of money today, but back in 1947, it was a lot more money, and it was a lot more enticing to bring forth physical evidence for this $3,000. So Brazel was intrigued, to say the least. And the reason that there was this reward is because the sheriff's office and army bases wanted to make sure that these flying discs didn't have any Soviet influence, because at this time the US and the Soviet Union were very much at odds, and the US was very concerned about the Soviet Union sending in atomic attacks or anything of that sort, spying on the US. We were very just concerned that the Soviet Union was going to try to send things over and sort of mess with the US. So that's why there was the $3,000 reward. The next day, so July 6th, Brazel drove to Roswell to report the incident to the sheriff, George Wilcox. The sheriff then called the RAAF, Roswell Army Airfield. After this, the base assigned Major Jesse Marshall and Captain Sheridan Cowitt. I think that's how you say his name. Also, sorry, I'm going to throw a lot of names at you right now, but I promise it's going to make sense in a second. Those two then returned with Brazel and gathered the evidence. A few days later, on July 8th, the RAAF Public Information Officer, Walter Halt, issued a press statement stating that the military had recovered a flying disc in Roswell, which sent everybody into a spiral. Conspiracy theorists, the general public, and the RAAF in general all really just were shocked at this revelation, and I'm going to read you a little bit of that press release right now. So here's the press release, well, part of it. Quote, "The many rumors regarding the flying disc became a reality yesterday when the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force, Roswell Army Airfield, was fortunate enough to gain possession of the disc through the cooperation of a local rancher and the Sheriff's Department of Chaves County." And that is the main part of the press release. There's more of it, and I'll link it down below if you want to go look at it. But that is the main portion that really sent the media interest into a frenzy, and it really skyrocketed this incident to great heights. Almost immediately after this, there was a press conference held with a bunch of Army officials, basically saying that the press release was invalid and that what they had found on the ranch was in fact just a weather balloon. Well, a string of weather balloons together, and they had said that they released about 80 of them all across the United States and that it was nothing to worry about. This led to public backlash, basically saying that why would you say it was a flying disc, and they're trying to cover something up, and that clearly wasn't a weather balloon. And so people started to riot, basically saying that the government is lying and that why would you say it's a weather balloon if it's not a weather balloon, and that a lot of people thought it was in fact a flying disc and maybe it's something to do with aliens or Soviet involvement. On July 9th, the Roswell Daily Record highlighted that the wreckage had no engine or substantial metal parts, which made it unlikely that it was in fact a flying saucer or any sort of aircraft, because it had no propellant system, had no explosion like that would account for fuel or something like that, and it had no engine or metal parts. There was also a statement from Brazel in this, which was the same statement he had given earlier, basically saying that it was just tinfoil, paper, and sticks mostly. After this, there was claims of Brazel being forced to prepare a cover story for the US Army, and he even told reporters later on that I am sure that what I found was not any weather balloon, end quote. So whether this was a forced sort of cover up or if this was genuinely just a weather balloon and Brazel sort of wanted his 5 minutes of fame is completely up to you guys to decide. But this story goes so much deeper, and it seems like a lot of witnesses either were sort of coerced into giving statements or gave statements that they later denied. So it's sort of just an interesting tidbit of information. After all of this public backlash and conspiracies that went on, the Army, despite all of this, came out and said that it was, in fact, just a string of weather balloons. But they did eventually come up with a second piece of information that made it seem a little more plausible to people, or at least that's what it was supposed to do. They came out and said that the weather balloons were in fact not your ordinary weather balloons, but weather balloons connected to Project Mogul, which I hope I'm saying that right. I looked up the pronunciation and I think that's how you say it, but if I'm wrong, please let me know. But let's talk about what Project Mogul was. Basically, Project Mogul was a covert operation to detect and pin out Soviet Union atomic attacks or just sort of aircrafts and things like that, because the US at this time were really, really concerned that the Soviet Union were in fact going to send some sort of airstrike or atomic attack or nuclear attack on the US. So they put out these strings of weather balloons that hid devices that would actually detect these sort of frequencies and would detect aircrafts and things that were in fact not US and that were Soviet Union. I couldn't exactly figure out how this technology works. Like, I couldn't find a source that really explained it in great detail. But the long two didn't read version is basically they were strings of weather balloons with devices hidden in them that were set to spot out and search for Soviet involvement in our airways, which very well could be possible because at the time us and the Soviet Union were very much at odds, and it seems plausible, and that was sort of their cover up for why the materials found at the crash site were not typical of a weather balloon, is because it also had this sort of device in it, and that could account for some of the weird sort of technology. A researcher also came out and said that they had launched a string of these balloons but lost contact with it within 17 miles of the base, which would make sense for where it landed. But once again, if these things are meant to go long range and spot Soviet technology, you think they wouldn't lose connection with them, because obviously they're meant to go out into the airways and be far away. So you think they'd have a better hold of it, but I don't know. What do I know? After this, the debris that were found at the crash site went into sort of storage at the army base, and nobody really talked about them, nobody really discussed them. There was no more information brought forth to the public about them. Whether there was things going on behind the scenes or not, I can't say, but in the public's eye, the debris in the crash in Roswell was sort of just brushed under the rug. It was a weather balloon, and no more was talked about. And after this, the crash site and the scrutiny behind it sort of died down for at least 3 decades. And this didn't stop conspiracy theorists and people from believing that this was a UFO. And oftentimes, if you were in this community of believers, this incident was brought up a lot of the times as possible government cover ups. But as a wide nation scale, it pretty much laid cold and untouched for around 3 decades. I do just want to touch on a little bit the pipeline from UFOs to aliens because these aren't always connected. UFOs or flying discs or flying saucers are often in modern times related directly to aliens, which we think of as little green Martian people that you see in movies, E.T. Phone Home, but that isn't also necessarily what it is all the time. UFOs are just that, unidentified flying objects, and a lot of people in 1947 thought that they were probably unknown military ships because in 1947 there was a lot going on. There was the Soviet Union and the fall of Germany, and the US was really getting involved in war and politics between other countries. So a lot of people thought that these unidentified flying objects were in fact military ships that just hadn't been released to the public yet. And a lot of people found it both terrifying and very interesting because, on one hand, these could be really dangerous, and why aren't they telling the public about these? And on the other hand, these could potentially protect us from attacks from other countries. And also, this was a time where nuclear activity and atomic activity were very much acting up and being hyped up. So people were on edge, to say the least. But often in modern times, we do think of UFOs in relation to aliens, which are extraterrestrial beings or visitors from outer space. But the term alien often refers to something or someone that is out of place or not a resident of a particular area, which basically means just life forms that aren't from here. So when we think of aliens, we often think of little green men, but realistically, they could look like anything. They could look just like us, just from somewhere that isn't Earth. And a lot of conspiracy theorists believe that UFOs and aliens go hand in hand. So when I refer to UFOs, I'm talking about both aliens and possible unknown military ships because realistically, it could be either. There's no set of whether it was aliens or if it was unknown military ships or if it was just, I don't know, something in the atmosphere that we just haven't discovered yet. After relatively 3 decades of the Roswell incident being absolutely radio silence, in an interview done in 1978, one brave man spoke up, which was Jesse Marcel. Marcel had accompanied the Roswell debris from the ranch to the press conference that happened at the time, and in the 1978 interview, Marcel stated that the weather balloon explanation from the press conference was in fact a quick cover-up story, and that he now believed that the debris were in fact extraterrestrial in nature. Marcel was interviewed again in December of 1979 by Bob Pratt of the National Enquirer tabloid, and this brought a large-scale attention to the story and really re-sparked the interest that had been cold for roughly 3 decades. This is one of the most mind-boggling pieces of information for me, and of course this is all alleged. We're just taking Marcel's word for it, but he described the foil that was found at the scene, that it could be crumpled but would uncrumple when released. So if you've ever folded tin foil, it just sort of stays that way, you can crumple it up into a ball. But he's basically saying that when he crumpled this tinfoil material, it sprung back into place as if it sort of could keep its shape. Like it was thin enough to be tinfoil, but strong enough to bounce back into shape when let go of the pressure. This is a highly talked about piece of information among this case, and a lot of internet sleuths and sort of conspiracy theorists alike really like to mention it in regards to the Roswell incident because that's not something earthly. So whether it's extraterrestrial, like Marcel is saying, or if it's some sort of metal that the US government has discovered that we aren't privy to, either way, kind of terrifying to me because, like, if it's thin enough to be like tinfoil, but it's like strong enough to keep its shape, like, that could be honestly, like, there's so many things you could do with that, and it would be ideal for aircrafts because aircrafts have to be light to a certain degree, and that would make them incredibly light if it's tinfoil thin. but strong enough to keep shape. So whether it is aliens or extraterrestrial, or just something we have here on Earth that the general public hasn't discovered, I think it's an interesting piece of information regardless if it's true. Another interview that's very prominent, that's also with Marcel. Marcel's really out here just running his mouth, okay? He really has a lot to say about this. It's been weighing heavy on him for 3 decades, okay? He had things to say, truly and deeply he did. This was on September 20th of 1980 in the TV series that was hosted by Star Trek actor Leonard Nimoy. I think is how you say his last name. I know people are going to come for me if that's not right, but I'm sorry. He aired an interview where Marcel basically said that his involvement or participation in the 1947 press conference was like he did not want to be there. He was not happy to be there. He did not believe the BS that they were spewing. And he basically said, and I quote, "They wanted some comments from me, but I was not at liberty to do that. So all I could do is keep my mouth shut. And General Ramy is the one who discussed and told the newspapers what it was, and to forget about it. It is nothing more than a weather balloon. Of course, we both knew differently." End quote. Which is a crazy statement. Not only is it sort of controversial in nature, because if this is true, he just admitted a whole government cover up of something that could be huge for not only extraterrestrial believers, but just proof that the government is lying to us, which I mean, I think we all sort of know the government is lying to us in some capacity, but like this is an actual statement. Like he said it flat out. The government is lying to you. So it definitely sparked rampage and crazy outbursts through media sources and the general public alike, because he basically just stirred the pot. He took all the Roswell stuff that had settled at the bottom of the soup and he just stirred it all up. Marcel went on to give many interviews, basically stating very similar things. He also did come out and speak about how he was completely on Brazel's side when Brazel had come out and said in that article that they had forced him to give sort of a statement, and Marcel came out and basically said that this is true. Brazzles was forced to keep quiet and basically go about his life, because if not, something bad could happen to him or his family, which is sort of terrifying in a way that the government, if this is true, because this is all alleged, okay? I'm simply just the messenger, okay? This is just boots on the ground journalism, he said, she said. I do not claim that any of these accounts are factual. This is just the information that I have found, and I am wrapping it all up in a bow and giving it to you guys. But I truly just, if this is true and the government is covering this up, saying that like something bad is gonna happen to Brazel and his family, like that's crazy that the government can just shut you up like that. Because personally, my personal opinion, if the government, like I knew some crazy information, like let's say a UFO crashed in my backyard and I like whatever, and the government came out and told me like you better say it was a weather balloon or like we're gonna hurt your family, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'd give a statement too. But Marcel really came out of the gate and just told him everything. In other accounts, he said that there was like an issue with transporting and putting the debris in storage. And he basically said that they were purposefully lost, which I don't really know what that means. And he didn't elaborate on that. But I'm going to go out on a whim here and say that like the evidence of the crash site in that was like sort of thrown away or maybe destroyed, because he just said that it was purposefully lost, which I mean, evidence does get lost. We've seen in a lot of these cold cases that I've covered that time passes, witnesses die, and evidence gets put into boxes, places, and often forgot about. But the way he said it just made me think that maybe there is a deeper cover up going on there, even within like the military, that some of the people below, because obviously there's a chain of command. We covered that in my Fort Hood case. So it's just kind of crazy to see the levels that, allegedly, if this is all true, the levels that are going into covering this up. The most chilling and sort of unnerving part of this whole thing, though, is Marcel, after this little media tour that he went on, went basically radio silent. Nobody heard from him. He didn't do any more public appearances. He didn't do anything in the public eye after this. It was like Marcel as a whole completely vanished off the face of the earth, which only led people to speculate more about deeper possible government cover-up, and maybe they shut Marcel up because maybe Marcel had said too much and they didn't like that. In further interviews that were mostly anonymous, so obviously I can't confirm the validity of these, but one soldier came out basically saying that he had been involved in the transportation of these debris, saying that one moment they were transporting these debris to the base, and the next moment they were being like ushered away, and the debris were loaded up onto a truck to be taken somewhere, which was supposed to be a neighboring fort. But when the neighboring fort was asked about these debris, it said that they never arrived, which this could add to what Marcel had said about the debris purposefully being lost. So this anonymous soldier doesn't really know what happened to them, but he knows one moment he was working on this truck, and then suddenly the higher ups basically said to get out and leave it, and it's fine. And when this soldier had asked, like, why are we just abandoning this project, like we were told that we needed to load this stuff up and take it to the next floor over, the higher ups basically told him, don't worry about it, it's sort of above your pay grade. So obviously I can't confirm the validity of an anonymous source, but I do feel like that's another tidbit of information that further adds to this sort of government cover-up theory that we have going. And with the disappearance of Marcel, I kind of feel like it might be accurate. After Marcel's press tour, the government and the U.S. Army base has not put out another formal statement other than the one they did put out in 1947. Obviously, when asked about all this different stuff, they just give no comment or simply deny, which is, I mean, to be thought. That you don't think they would come out and say, yeah, we there was a government cover up, and we really dropped the ball on that one. I don't think they'd say that. But at the end of the day, if it is true, that really sucks for everybody involved, because imagine knowing the truth about something and being worried like the government's gonna get you for it. Like, that's kind of crazy. But after all these interviews and things that came out, many theories circled, which were the same theories that circled in 1947. Was it an alien spaceship? Was it an unidentified flying object that was military based? Was it all one big hoax? Because a lot of people thought that Brazel simply did it for like clout, like for money. Like he did it because he wanted to be a part of the craze or whatever, which I don't personally believe, but then again, that's just my personal opinion. Form your own opinions with the information that I've given to you. And this whole UFO government cover up thing spread a lot of distrust for the US government at a time where trusting the US government wasn't fully supported anyway because of all the war and thing that was going on. But once again, I do encourage you to make your own decisions, and I do encourage you to go and research this case for yourself, because there's so many little minute details that I just could not cover in this video unless I wanted to make it a million years long, and I really went down a rabbit hole. But I tried to give you the overview Cliff Notes version of what the Roswell incident is, because it is such a big incident that spans so many decades, and there's so many little minute parts of it. And I really do encourage you to go down that rabbit hole yourself and really just see what you can find and form your own opinions. But I do really want to know what you guys think it is, because there's so many theories, and I feel like there's so many that's plausible. Like, obviously, I personally think that, it's not a weather balloon, but I guess it totally could be a weather balloon, just like for the Project Mogul stuff, because I don't know anything about Soviet technology, so I don't know what that would be. But I definitely think maybe it was some sort of aircraft that we don't know about, and whether that's like extraterrestrial and aliens, or if it's the government doing something. I personally believe the government is always doing something. I think that they don't always tell the full truth, so I think that's definitely a plausible theory on that front. But I am interested to see what you guys have to think down below, because this case has so many twists and turns, and truly it is mind-boggling. Because what if it was like a Soviet ship? Like, what if it wasn't even US? If it was like Soviet, and then the government just like covered it up because they didn't know what it was. Like, what if, like, that material stuff, that's what really gets me, is the him talking about the tinfoil stuff. Because even if it is a weather balloon, do those even have like tinfoil on them? Or I thought they were like the balloon material, like not like a latex balloon, but like the hot air balloon material. I thought that's what it was, but maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to put a picture in here of what a weather balloon actually looks like, because I don't even know if I really know. But like how he said he could crumple it and then uncrumple it and it was fine. Like, what if that's some Soviet technology that we don't even know about? The Soviet Union is a really crazy, like, just the stuff about the Cold War. The Cold War is a whole nother rabbit hole that I have been down. It's one of my like history interest time periods. Um, and actually, there's a really crazy stuff about the Soviet Union that goes along with the Dyatlov Pass case. So if you guys want to see a video on that, let me know, because the Dyatlov Pass is one that I have been so intrigued with since the moment I found out about it. And if you don't know what the Dyatlov Pass is, basically it's a group of hikers that went out into the Soviet wilderness to hike, and they're all very experienced, and they all die in really brutal ways. And to this day, we haven't been able to really explain what happened to them. And it's sort of got a government cover up element to it. And it's also got the, not aliens, but Yetis. It's got a Yeti element to it. So if you guys sort of want to see that, I will totally do a video on that, but let me know down below. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to let me know your theories down below. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe maybe if you want to see more of me. Okay? Alright, I love you. Back to outro me. Bye. So what do you think? Conspiracy? Government cover-up? Is everybody here crazy? Are aliens real? I mean, of course they're real. You're looking right at me, alright? Anyway, let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you think it was aliens, a conspiracy, a government cover-up, or overall just something completely else. I love to hear what you have to think down below, and I will be reading all of your comments, okay? Hold on to your tinfoil hats, and I will see you maybe in the next one. I have to go abduct some people or drink a latte. I don't know what aliens do. Whatever you think I do, okay? Gotta get back to Area 51, alright? Also, I just want to give a huge shout out to my cousin and his amazing girlfriend who made me this custom merch. I have a shirt with my YouTube on it, like, shameless plug. I got it for my birthday. They're freaking amazing. I know they're watching this. Love you guys. Alright.